Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursdays Live with Chug. Each week, we cover pressing topics that matter to you and your business. I'm Arianna Gonzalez from Chug Attorneys and CPAs tuning in from our San Diego office, and please join me in welcoming partner and attorney Gladys Gervacio and senior immigration paralegal Benjamin Fortuna from our headquarters in Los Angeles, California. Hi there, Gladys and Benjamin, and welcome.
Hi, Arianna. Glad to be back. We're here to discuss another important topic.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time. For today's topic, we're going to be answering all your pressing questions on naturalization. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started, this conversation is for informational purposes only. It does not create an attorney-client relationship, so if you have questions, please email us anytime at info@chuk.com, and we would love to help you out. Now, this is a highly requested topic, so we're going to be covering naturalization. For those of you who might just be starting to explore this topic, Gladys, can you tell us what is naturalization?
So naturalization in general is a process by which a citizen of one country becomes citizen of another country. For US naturalization, this process involves a lawful permanent resident fulfilling certain legal requirements, such as continuous residence, physical presence, good moral character, English language proficiency, and knowledge of US civics, among other requirements. And once these requirements are met, he can apply for citizenship through the naturalization process. And at the completion of this process, the person becomes a US citizen, having the same rights and privileges as that of an individual born in the US.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you did mention the process. Can you walk us through what are the steps involved in the naturalization process from start to finish?
So naturalization is a multi-step process. So the first one would be to determine your eligibility for naturalization, which we'll discuss further on each legal requirement. And then you filed your N-400. So there is an update to this. USCIS recently updated its form version of the N-400. The latest version is the April 1st version. And as of June 3rd, they will only accept this version of the form. So you file the N-400. After filing the N-400 and supporting documents, you get a biometrics appointment notice, and you go for your biometrics, and during which you'll submit your fingerprints, photograph, and signature for background checks. This is followed by the interview, and then a decision on the part of USCIS, and finally, that's the oath ceremony.
Wow, that's all really good to know. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. So, Benjamin, can you tell us what is the current naturalization processing time with USCIS? What does that look like?
Well, processing time with USCIS varies on several factors, depending on first the applicant's location, the workload of the USCIS office handling the application, and any potential issues or delays with the application itself. So the average processing time is currently around 6 to 8 months. So please note that these processing times can fluctuate, and USCIS regularly updates this processing time estimates on its website. You can check the current estimated processing times for naturalization applications in your local USCIS field office on the USCIS website.
Okay, that's good to know. So we're typically looking at 6 to 8 months, but it can definitely vary from that. Okay, so can we talk about the costs as well? How much does it cost to apply for naturalization, and what are the costs associated with it?
Well, first, there are two ways to file, either by paper filing or online filing. So the fee for paper filing is $760, and it's $710 for the online filing. Now, this general fee can be reduced to $380 if you meet the threshold of annual household income of not more than 400% of the federal poverty guidelines, and you have to provide supporting documents with your application. Now, certain applicants may be eligible for a fee waiver, such as those who are means-tested benefit like the SSI, which is the Supplemental Security Income, or the TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. Now, please note that you cannot file online if you are requesting for a fee waiver or a reduced fee. You must do paper filing.
Oh, that's really good to know. So we have to do paper filing if we're requesting to have the fee waived. That's really good information. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, Gladys, can you help tell us who is eligible to apply for US citizenship through naturalization? Is it just anyone?
So there are several bases to apply for naturalization, and most people apply under the general provision. So these are for lawful permanent residents who have been, in that status for 5 years. So they call that the general provision. And those that are lawful permanent residents for 3 years through their marriage to a US citizen. So I'll call that the spousal provision. Basically, applicants apply through those two, but there are also other bases such as the VAWA provision. When you're a spouse, you obtained your lawful permanent resident status through VAWA, and you're trying to apply without having completed 3 years of marital union with a petitioner. And then there's the military service during period of hostilities, or you're the spouse of a US citizen with a qualified employment outside the US. So there are other bases, but generally it's the general provision and under the spousal provision.
Wow, that's really good to know. So what are the general requirements for naturalization? What does that look like?
So to be eligible to apply for citizenship, you must be a lawful permanent resident. So, and as mentioned earlier, can be 5 years under the general provision, or as the spouse of a US citizen shortens the period to 3 years. And then there's the physical presence requirement. This means that you have to be physically residing in the US for at least 30 months in the 5-year period, if you're filing under the general provision, or for at least 18 months in the 3 years if you're filing under the spousal provision. Now, another thing to take note of is the requirement that you should be residing in the state or the USCIS district where you claim to have residency for at least 90 days prior to filing your N-400 application. Another requirement is the continuous residence requirement. And so you have to have continuously resided in the US for that 5-year period or the 3-year period, as the case may be. Now, extended absences outside the US may affect this continuous residence requirement. For instance, if you've been outside the US for more than 6 months but less than 1 year, there's a rebuttable presumption that attaches that you broke your continuous residence in the US. But you can overcome this presumption by showing that you continue to be employed in the US, or your immediate family members remain in the US, or you continue to own or lease property in your residence in the US. Now, if you've been outside the US for more than a year, then it's considered as having broken your continuous residence requirement. Now, there's also the requirement of good moral character. USCIS will want to check whether you have been adhering to US laws, your criminal history, if you have any criminal record. And then there's the English language proficiency. You have to be able to read, write, speak, understand basic English, and USCIS will test you on that. And then there's knowledge of US government and history. USCIS will also test you on your knowledge of that. Then finally, they will ask you whether you will adhere to the principles of the US Constitution, whether you're willing to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and whether you're willing to take an oath of allegiance to the United States and renounce any other allegiance to any other country.
Okay, that's quite a few requirements listed there. So if you are watching this and have any questions, if you qualify, please send us an email at info@troop.com. We would love to help you out. So Ben, can you help cover what documents are needed for the naturalization application? What papers do we need to have in order?
Yeah, the specific documents required may vary based on the basis for filing. So here's the general list of documents. So you need to submit a copy of both the front and the back of your permanent resident card. This is commonly known as the green card. A copy of your valid government issued photo identification, such as your driver's license or your passport. And typically you need to provide two identical passport style photos taken within a specified time frame before submitting your application. Now, if you are married and seeking naturalization based on a marriage to a US citizen, you'll need to provide a copy of the marriage certificate. Now, if you have been previously married and divorced or had your marriage terminated, you may need to provide your divorce or annulment documents. Now, regarding the selective service registration, this applies to male applicants. So male applicants between the ages of 18 and 26, they are required to register with the selective service system. And you may need to provide documentation showing registration, or if you are exempt, then an exempt from that registration. So regarding evidence of residence and physical presence, these documents demonstrate your continuous residence and physical presence in the United States during the required period, such as rental agreements, utility bills, tax returns, or employment records, if these are called into the question by the officers. Now, regarding tax returns, you have to provide also typically the last 5 years of your tax returns or your tax transcripts. Criminal records, if applicable, you need to secure court certified criminal records. And if you are in the military, then military documents.
Wow, okay, so up to 10 different documents might be required for this. That's quite a bit. Make sure if you guys have questions, you are reaching out to your trusted attorney to help you out with this. So Gladys, you did mention the Form N-400 earlier. I want to go back to that a little bit. Can you help tell us what the process is for submitting the naturalization application Form N-400?
So the N-400 and the supporting documents can be submitted via paper filing, directly mail your application to USCIS, or you can also do that now online. You create a USCIS account online and follow the process, and you fill out the form online and upload your supporting documents on your account. You can be assisted by an attorney and represented by an attorney, even if you do file online.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's really good to know. So online filing is available now. We can still do a paper filing if we prefer that. And then I believe you did mention if we want a waiver, we have to do the paper filing. So that's good to keep in mind as well. So Ben, can you tell us what happens after submitting the naturalization application?
So after submission of your form N-400, the next step would be USCIS will send you a receipt notice confirming that they have received your package. This notice will include a unique receipt number, which you can use to track the status of your application. In most cases, USCIS will schedule you for a biometrics appointment at a local application support center. During this appointment, your fingerprints, photographs, and signature will be taken for background checks. Now, if USCIS determines that additional documentation or information is needed to process your application, they may issue a request for evidence. This is called the RFE. You'll need to provide the requested documents within the specified time frame to avoid delays in the processing. Now, once USCIS has reviewed your application and conducted background checks, they will schedule you for a naturalization interview at a USCIS office. You will receive a notice with the date, the time, and the location of the interview. Now, on the interview, during the interview, a USCIS officer will review your application with you. Yeah, it's going to ask you questions about your eligibility for naturalization and test your knowledge of English and civics. If everything goes smoothly and you pass the required test, the officer may approve your application on the spot or request additional information or documentation. Now, after the interview, USCIS will make a decision on your naturalization application. If approved, you'll receive a notice granting your application or scheduling for a naturalization ceremony. Now, if denied, USCIS will provide a written explanation of the reasons for the denial, and you may have the right to appeal the decision. Now, if your application is approved, you will be scheduled to attend a naturalization ceremony where you will take the oath of allegiance to the United States. And at this ceremony, you'll receive your certificate of naturalization, officially confirming your US citizenship.
Wow, okay, that's quite a lengthy process. I appreciate you walking us through that. So you did mention an interview, and I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more. So Gladys, what is the naturalization interview, and how does one prepare for this?
So Arianna, the naturalization interview is a crucial step in the naturalization process. So during the interview, the officer reviews the N400, makes a determination whether you are eligible for citizenship, and tests you on English and civics. So it's important that you be prepared for the interview. So how do you prepare for the interview? You have to review and study your N400, familiarize yourself with the answers you provided in the N400, review them carefully, make sure that during the interview, your answers are consistent, make sure the information are accurate and up to date. You can actually provide updates to the officer at the time of the interview. You want to study, of course, for the English test and the civics test. During the biometrics appointment, I believe they hand out the booklet. It's the 100 civics questions and answers, which you can start reviewing. So make sure you review for those tests. You want to also bring the required documents. Benjamin mentioned all the required documents that you want to bring during the interview. Review the interview notice. Organize this document so that it's easy to find during the interview. And then review interview procedures, look at available resources online. USCIS has a video of how the interview process takes place. So you want to, so you're not surprised during the interview. You want to watch those videos so you know what to expect during the interview. Lastly, you want to stay calm and confident during the interview. It's a nerve-wracking experience to go before an officer and be tested. So, and the confidence will come from being prepared. So it's important to just be prepared, listen to the officer's questions carefully, and answer truthfully and to the best of your ability.
Such great advice, Gladys. Yes, definitely review your application. Make sure your answers are consistent. Make sure you know what you answered for all of these questions. So Gladys, do we have an idea of what kind of questions are asked during the naturalization interview? Do you have any insight into that?
Yes, Arianna. So during the naturalization interview, the officer goes over your N400 application and asks you questions from that application. So he can ask you about your biographic information, your residence history, your travel history. Can ask you questions on, of course, test you on your English knowledge and the civics test, of course, and then questions on your good moral character, and then your willingness to take the oath of allegiance to the United States. So, but I did want to mention one important note under this question is that, the officer also checks how you obtained your green card. So if you're an employment-based if you obtained your green card through an employment-based preference category, you may want to bring documents related to that employment. So to show that you validly obtained your green card. So the officer does check how a person got their green card, even at the naturalization stage.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you did mention they might test us on civics knowledge. Benjamin, can you touch on what is the purpose of the civics tests in the naturalization process?
The purpose of the civic test is to evaluate the applicant's knowledge and understanding of US history, the government, and the civics to ensure that those seeking citizenship have a basic understanding of the principles and values upon which the US was founded. And also, it encourages civic engagement and participation in the democratic process.
Such great insight. And so, how can applicants prepare for the naturalization civics test? Gladys, do you have any insight on that?
Yes, Ariana. So USCIS has a wealth of resources online. So you want to check USCIS website. They have so many practice materials, so many review materials. You can also use other online resources like different nonprofit organizations provide practice materials as well. And then there are those workshops and classes in your local community, like check with your adult education centers or your community colleges. And then you may want to, practice with your family members, with your friends on these tests.
Great resources you mentioned. And yes, great advice. Practice with your family, practice with your friends. I'm sure they'd be happy to help you out with this. Practice with your attorney if they let you. So Ben, can we cover any exemptions if they're available? Are there any exemptions or accommodations available for the naturalization test?
Oh, yes, yeah, there are three scenarios on this. You are exempt from the English language requirement, but you're still required to take the civic test. So this is commonly the 50-20, called the 50-20 exemption, the 55-15, and also the third, you may call it 65-20. So now if you are age 50 or older at the time of filing for naturalization and have lived as a permanent resident in the US for 20 years, so this is the 50-20. And the second one is the 55. If you are age 55 or older at the time of filing and have lived as a permanent resident for 15 years, so this is the 55-15. So, however, even if you qualify for the 50-20 or the 55-15 English language, the English language exemptions listed above, you still have to take the civic test. Now, you will be permitted to take the civic test in your native language. If you take the test in your native language, you must bring an interpreter with you to the interview. Now, if the third scenario is if you're age 65 or older and have been a permanent resident for at least 20 years at the time of filing, you will be given a special consideration regarding the civic requirements. Now, regarding the medically determined physical impairment or mental impairment, applicants with certain medically determinable physical impairment or mental impairment that affects their ability to learn or demonstrate knowledge of English and civics may be eligible for an exemption or accommodation. USCIS may conduct an evaluation to determine this eligibility. Now, disability accommodation. So USCIS provides reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities who are unable to take the civic test in the usual manner due to their disability. Accommodations may include providing a sign language interpreter, allowing additional time to complete the test, or providing a written version of the test in the large print or the braille. Applicants seeking exemptions or accommodations for naturalization test should follow the procedures outlined by USCIS and provides appropriate documentation to support their request.
Wow, that's really good to know that there are some exemptions and accommodations. So if you are watching this and have questions, if you do qualify for those, we'd love to help out. Reach out to us anytime. So Gladys, can you tell us what is the naturalization oath ceremony and what should applicants expect during this process?
Sure, Ariana. The naturalization oath ceremony is the final step. in this long naturalization process. It marks the end of that journey, right? And it's so important. What to expect on the day of your ceremony. You usually bring your notice, make sure that the questions are answered at the back of the notice. You check in, so make sure you go there on time. Dress appropriately. It's an important occasion. You can actually bring family and friends during the ceremony. They have a designated area for your family and friends. You will need to surrender your green card when you're checking in. The ceremony itself takes about, I think, 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes, the usual welcome remarks from a USCIS official. And then you take your oath, and you're taking your oath of allegiance to the United States of America, renouncing your allegiance to any other country. And then the participants are also asked to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And, there is a singing of the national anthem as well. And finally, in my experience, there's a video message from the current president of the United States of America welcoming the new citizens. It's really a meaningful event. And when you're holding that naturalization certificate at the end of the program, it does feel like you're beginning a new chapter in your life.
Oh, that sounds so special and amazing, and definitely the most exciting part of this process. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Gladys. So let's take a slightly different direction here and talk about possible delays or denials in the process. What can cause a delay or denial in the naturalization process? Why does this happen sometimes?
So this happens if there are issues with your eligibility requirements, if USCIS finds that there's incomplete or incorrect information in your N400, or you did not submit the required documents as requested by USCIS, or maybe they did background checks, security checks, and something came up that you did not disclose. So it's best for when you feel that there are issues with your eligibility requirements to consult an attorney. Some of course, when you fail the English test or the civics test, you'll be given an opportunity to take the test again another time. But if you fail, then the application gets denied. That does not preclude you from refiling at a future date when you're more prepared to take those tests. Some delays may be on the part of USCIS, such as when there are administrative backlogs and they do not have resources, so processing times may be longer than usual.
All really good things to keep in mind. Yes, make sure you're adequately prepared and ready to pass these tests, because you don't want to have to start this process over again. Great advice, Gladys. So Benjamin, how can applicants check the status of their naturalization application? Is there a way to know the status of our application?
Oh yes, yeah. There are three ways. By using your receipt number, you can track your case status online by the USCIS website. And second, if you have the USCIS online account, so if you file your form N400 online and link your paper application to the online account, you can log in with your credentials to the My USCIS account and view the case status and any update or messages from USCIS. The third is the USCIS contact center. This is by phone. So applicants can call USCIS contact center at 1-800-375-5283. So be prepared to provide the receipt number and other identifying information. And the other USCIS contact center is by live assistance. So you can request to speak to a live representative for the detailed information.
Wow, really good to know. So USCIS has plenty of resources for us to check our status. So Gladys, let's touch on the benefits of becoming a naturalized US citizen. Why do people want to do this? Are there any benefits to it? Do you have any insight on this?
There are plenty of benefits, right? And you have the right to vote. Finally, you have a voice in the democratic process. You have a right to hold federal job, apply and hold that a federal job. You have the right to and the responsibility, of course, to be part of a jury and participate in the judicial process. You are become eligible for certain public benefits. There are travel benefits, of course. You can travel visa-free to many countries when you're a US passport holder. And then there's that part of family reunification where you can sponsor more foreign national family members to come to the US and join you. And then you have that automatic citizenship for children under 18 if certain conditions are met.
Wow, thank you so much for that insight, Gladys. That is all we have time for today, unfortunately. So if you do want to see more on this topic, definitely let us know. We'd love to do a part 2 if you guys are interested. Thank you so much, Gladys and Benjamin, for your time and your insights. This does bring us to the end of our conversation. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. To stay up to date, please subscribe and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If this video was helpful, please make sure to give it a like and share it. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send us an email anytime at info@chug.com. Let us know what topic you want to see next. And if you need help with this process, reach out to us anytime. And be sure to join us back here next week for more pressing topics that truly matter to you and your business. Until next time, stay safe and take care. Thank you again, everyone. And thank you, Gladys and Benjamin.